people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, and now it's time for our weekend recap. We're going to kick it off with this weekend's title fight in the women's super bantamweight division. Scotney versus Griffa. A fight that worked out exactly as I predicted, exactly as I expected. Ellie Scotney's punches were a lot shorter and more accurate than Griffa's. The counters were sweet, managing the distance.
Ellie was sharp.
Laura Griffa did her best to show some aggression, make it scrappy in spots, tried to, but Ellie Scotney showed better footwork, better feet, and keeping space while walking Laura into punches.
Ahead of the fight, I told you, this thing is going to be determined by inches.
Inches and subtleties, many of them, to where Ellie Scotney will just look better all around than Laura Griffa, as Laura was looking for a dogfight, but Ellie would keep it a boxing match. Very tidy.
Very neat.
Great defensive highlights from Ellie Scotney, showing a good tight guard
In the pocket.
the inside, and good movement, weaving under punches, mid-range to outside.
Ellie Scotney landed a huge right hand towards the tail end of the fifth round. Looked like she stunned Laura Griffa. Looks like she could have stopped her, but as I stated ahead of the fight,
Laura, for all her drawbacks, she's been in there with a lot of fighters, really good ones, some stronger punchers than Ellie Scotney, and they didn't stop Laura, so in all likelihood, Ellie wouldn't stop Laura.
she didn't, though she looked like she came close in the fifth round. Stunned her off a big right hand.
With Ellie Scotney, it's the little things. It's all about the subtleties that make her a better, more well-rounded fighter than somebody like Laura Griffa.
The punches are tighter, the hooks are more compact, responsible punches.
Her movement, finishing off a combination, then dipping off to the side to keep her head off center.
Avoiding any return fire.
Managing the distance, not just with her jab, but with her feet, keeping a bit of space between her and Laura, who couldn't match Ellie Scotney's hand speed.
So she opted to crowd her. Tried to, but that didn't work. No surprises here. I had Ellie Scotney winning a points decision. That's what she did. Now, attention turns to what she's going to do next.
I feel like the people at Matchroom, and what they might do, is match Ellie Scotney against the winner of the upcoming Mayerline Rivas versus Erica Cruz fight for what is Mayerline's WBA title at 122 pounds. I feel like Ellie may end up fighting the winner of that fight at some point next year, maybe in the first or second quarter.
This fight
With Laura Griffa was just a maintenance fight, a quick run-out fight to keep the machine well-oiled, keep the tool sharp, keep Ellie Scotney busy, keep her active, keep her fighting.
learning.
Because she's still a very young fighter, a young champion, and she still needs more rounds of experience.
Got some this past weekend with Laura Griffa. No surprises here.
No surprises in the lightweight contest that took place on that same show for what was the EBU title, the fight between Dixon and Thanderz.
Now that wasn't a tick-over fight. That wasn't a maintenance fight. I wouldn't call it that, even if it had the aesthetic of one.
That on paper, I feel like this was supposed to be a lot harder for Dixon than it actually was, but Rhiannon was noticeably faster than Thanderz at the start. You saw Rhiannon getting off 3 and 4 punch combinations.
Very fast.
Fighting out of the southpaw stance, what was only the second southpaw that Thanderz had faced in her professional boxing career. Katharina having more rounds in the bank, more fights overall than Rhiannon.
Though not more ability.
Dixon's hands and feet were simply too fast for Thanderz as Rhiannon managed the distance, firing counter shots and combinations.
Concentrated effort to the body.
She stunned Thanderz towards the tail end of the third round, and you saw a concentrated effort from Rhiannon to go to Thanderz's midsection, likely with the Terry Harper knockout in mind. Terry Harper fought Katharina some time ago, stopped her with a body shot.
It looks like Rhiannon figured she could do the same, and she tried to.
Thanderz weathering the storm behind a very tight guard, protecting that body. We saw some defensive improvements from Rhiannon Dixon. Responsible finishes to her combinations, tilting off to the side.
Staying off center.
She'd get off a series of punches, then at the tail end of the combination, lean off to the side as to avoid any return fire.
Anything that might come back at her.
Thanderz looking very slow and befuddled in this fight. For every one punch that Katharina threw, you'd see 3 and 4 punches from Rhiannon. She was just a lot, and I mean a lot faster.
Nice and balanced.
Coordinated as both the aggressor and the defender when she's laying into Katharina Thanderz, getting off those punches, and when she's backpedaling, creating a bit of space.
She was coordinated.
Gets better every time I see her. See, a fight with Katharina Thanderz for Rhiannon Dixon, who doesn't come from some decorated amateur background, while it might have looked like a quick run-out fight, a keep busy fight. On paper, that's not what it was supposed to be. On paper,
Katharina's got a lot more rounds in the bank.
and more experience. So Rhiannon Dixon dominating her the way that she did. You know, if this was an acid test, Rhiannon passed it with flying colors.
Looks sensational.
The future is looking bright for Rhiannon Dixon, the lightweight division's newly crowned EBU champion. And I would like to see her defend that EBU title 2, maybe even 3 more times before she challenges for a world title, before things get even more serious. But so far, so good. The development of Rhiannon Dixon is on schedule, and she's looking sharp.
Congratulations.
We come to the main event of that same card, the IBF and Ring Magazine Cruiserweight title fight between Jai Opetaia, the champion, and Jordan Thompson, the challenger, a fighter of unknown quality.
An unbeaten fighter with a noticeable height advantage, reach advantage, the much bigger of the two, giving the fight a David and Goliath kind of feel.
In the end, neither Jordan Thompson's height or reach serviced as an advantage of any kind. In spite of all the time away from the ring, time off, Jai Opetaia's timing with the left hand, his backhand.
Because he's a southpaw.
He didn't miss a beat. In spite of all the time away from the ring, remember, this guy hasn't fought since the Mayris-Briedis fight over a year ago.
He didn't miss a beat.
Timing was still there, sharpness in his movement. I think what was most impressive is that in spite of Jai Opetaia being the noticeably smaller fighter, he was the one managing the distance. You don't often see that when one fighter is a lot shorter than another. More often than not, what the shorter fighter resorts to doing is closing the distance instead of managing it.
They close it. They spend most of the fight trying to get close to the taller guy.
Which in many instances can be a battle in it of itself, just getting close to the guy. Whereas Jai, what impressed me about Jai is he wasn't bum rushing Jordan Thompson. He wasn't barreling forward trying to stay on top of him. He was bouncing back and forth on the balls of his feet, managing the distance.
Timing the backhand.
Timing Jordan Thompson with the backhand, the left hand, couldn't miss, out jabbing him, even though Jordan Thompson was noticeably taller and longer. It was Jai Opetaia's jab that was most effective. This contest only lasted 4 rounds, and it was a complete demolition job.
He destroyed Jordan Thompson.
Ahead of this fight, there was a question as to whether or not all the time off would affect Jai Opetaia because he hadn't fought in over a year's time. And usually what you see, fighters, under those circumstances, is ring rust.
The timing is off, the punches are flat.
But Jai didn't show any. He didn't show any signs of ring rust, and that was impressive. I can only deduce that all that time off, he spent it working on things, not just sitting on the couch eating chips.
He was sharp.
Noticeably strong. I can't tell you what would have happened if Jordan Thompson would have landed a power shot on Jai Opetaia. I can't tell you how he would have took it or what would have happened because Jai didn't let it get that far. He made short work of this guy.
Continuing to impress and build upon his victory over Mayris-Briedis, his first defense as this division's Ring Magazine and IBF champion.
And the first thing that came to mind after the fight was over was they're going to struggle to find opponents for Jai. They are. They're going to struggle to find guys that are willing to fight him. The other champions at this weight, they would sooner fight each other than fight him because what you have in Jai is a young fighter, a crafty southpaw who can move and punch, take a punch.
He can take a punch.
He's sharp. He's fast. He can move.
He's good.
I think they're going to struggle to get him unification matches. I think they're going to struggle to find him opponents. The other 2 alphabet titles at this weight.
They're at boxer.
Chris Billum-Smith's got the WBO, Arsen Gulumarian's got the WBA, and word around the campfire is he just signed the boxer.
They're going to try to do their own thing with those 2 titles.
Don't see boxers sending either of those champions over to Matchroom, leaving only the WBC title, which has just been vacated by Badu Jack.
Moved up the bridge a weight.
Thus, Lunga Makabu, the former champion, and Noel Guevara Gavor. They're going to be fighting for it very soon. I feel like that's Jai Opetaia's best bet at landing a unification match, getting the winner of that fight, whoever it is, whether it's Lunga Makabu or Noel Gavor.
Jai took care of this guy fast. Took care of him in 4 rounds.
The conditions are right. I wouldn't mind seeing him squeeze in another fight, another keep busy fight before the year is out. There is still all of November and December to work with. Because he took care of this guy quick, didn't take too many hard shots, if any.
Get him another fight.
But get him another fight in his native Australia. You know, it's nice that Jai Opetaia made his Matchroom debut, his UK debut, but you could really turn this guy into a big draw in the land down under.
Matchroom has already signed a good number of Australian fighters. Jai Opetaia, Justice Hooney, Ebony Bridges, Sky Nicholson, Dempsey McKean, Liam Bottle.
And I think they still have Stevie Sparks. They've made a conscious investment in the Australian boxing scene, and I think Jai Opetaia's fights are better suited for an Australian audience than a British one. That if you're unable to get him those big matches, those big unification matches with the likes of a Chris Billum-Smith, then why have him fighting in the UK?
Chris is a boxer.
And he might have to fight Lawrence Okolie again, so outside of a fight like that, there's no sense in Jai Opetaia fighting on British soil.
I mean, maybe a keep busy fight here and there, but that's what this was, wasn't it?
The advantage that Jai Opetaia has, having Matchroom as his co-promoter, is Matchroom can show his fights via the DAZN platform to a global audience.
A British one, an American one, wherever they're available.
Though it's not actually necessary for Jai Opetaia, a reigning champion, a young one, to spend most of his time abroad, most of his time on the road. For that,
Have him box in Australia.
that unless it's for a big fight or a big show, a big card, you might as well just base him out of Australia, let him continue to grow his brand, grow his name in Australia.
He can headline down there.
Congratulations to him for what was his first successful defense of both the IBF and Ring Magazine titles. I look forward to seeing more from this fighter.
See what Matchroom can do for him.
We then come to what felt like this weekend's main event, the super middleweight undisputed title fight between Canelo Alvarez, the champion, and Jermell Charlo, the challenger.
Even though this fight was one-sided, I mean, I actually had it 12 rounds to 0, 12 rounds to zip in favor of Canelo Alvarez. It's left me with a lot of parting thoughts.
A lot to think about, though. Let's just talk about the fight for now, the fight itself. At the start,
First round.
I feel like the first round was the only round that you could have given to Jermell Charlo, not because of anything he did,
But because it was a quiet round. It was a quiet round for both, a feel-out round. And I think that's the only round that you could have given Jermell, though I gave it to Canelo because Canelo was coming forward, starting to apply pressure early.
and it was all Canelo Alvarez afterwards. It was all Canelo Alvarez after that. He turned the heat up on Jermell Charlo, and it didn't take him long to do it. As I predicted, Jermell Charlo would be moving lateral, using the ring in order to keep distance between himself and Canelo Alvarez, perhaps in an effort to set traps and walk Canelo Alvarez into punches. But as I stated in the build-up, this ain't Brian Castano.
No.
A lot of those punches that you landed on Brian, that stuff's not going to work with Canelo.
They may have similar builds, similar physical dimensions, but their methodology is different. Brian is a textbook pressure guy, volume guy.
A lot more simple than what you get from Canelo Alvarez. Not to say that Canelo doesn't apply pressure. He does, but he's not a pressure fighter. He's not that one-dimensional, not that simple.
Canelo's method of applying pressure is a lot more streamlined. He applies pressure with his presence, with his feet, staying with you, staying on you, baiting you to throw so he can counter what you throw.
And when he's not countering what you throw, he discourages you by making you miss. He either blocks and parries the punches or makes you miss punches altogether, which, if it happens often enough, will make you hesitant, tentative.
Weary.
Round after round, this was the story. This was the story of the fight. A very mobile Jermell Charlo who seemed less and less like a lion as the fight progressed and more like a gazelle running for his life.
Gazelles only.
I want to say that Even though Canelo Alvarez was intended to be the more weathered fighter of the two, the more war-torn fighter, speculation that Canelo was slipping and slowing down. He looked sharp yesterday. The jab.
Even though Jermell Charlo is the taller and longer fighter with the bigger frame, it was Canelo Alvarez winning the battle of the jabs.
Successfully landing several jabs as he stepped into them to close the distance in order to bring over big punches, hard punches. The difference in power was noticeable.
You could tell.
Big hooks, big right hands, one that floored Jermell Charlo in the second half of the fight. A bit of a delayed reaction as that well-placed right hand landed on the top of Jermell Charlo's head.
Flush.
Takes a step forward, then takes a knee. He knew he was hurt.
Yeah.
As stated, the difference in power, the difference between them, it was noticeable. If you needed any indicator as to what the difference was, just look at how much time Jermell Charlo spent on his bike. Not comfortable enough to trade punches with Canelo in the pocket, often electing to tie him up. Try and smother him.
Which only bought him time.
Momentarily, it only bought him time. It didn't help him win any of these rounds.
No.
With his confidence sapped, it became clear quickly, very quickly, that Jermell Charlo was just fighting to survive.
There's a thin line between creating space in order to set a trap and retreating. And what Jermell Charlo was doing, that was outright retreating. He was outright running.
You're not moving lateral to create enough space to set up a counter. You're not moving lateral for any other reason other than you're not comfortable trading punches with Canelo Alvarez.
He's too strong.
You're just trying to survive. Survive the round, survive the fight. For such a long time, Jermell Charlo, like his brother, was one of these fighters Canelo's Boo Bird said,
They said he was ducking these guys. They said that he was ducking slick American fighters. There was nothing slick about Jermell Charlo yesterday.
You want to know what slick is? Slick is being able to hold your footing, roll and ride punches mid-range to inside without getting hit. That's slick. Staying so far on the outside that you're practically running. There's nothing slick about that.
Another buzzword you often hear in the sport of boxing from those who don't even know what the fuck it means.
There was nothing slick about Jermell Charlo yesterday, and there's nothing slick about a minimalist approach to boxing, staying so far on the outside, you're barely fighting.
It's movement for the sake of movement.
The only purpose behind it is to stay out of the pocket, stay away from the other guy, and try to survive the round. If it has any purpose, any function, that is the function.
Addressing the notion that Canelo Alvarez was slipping.
Based on how he looked with Gennady Golovkin in their third fight, based on how he looked with John Ryder, compared to how he looked yesterday. Yesterday, he looked fast, he looked strong, certainly stronger than Jermell.
I think he took the Jermell Charlo fight a bit more seriously than those fights.
And I also think he heard what the critics were saying, that he may be in decline. He was switched on for this fight. I think he was inspired, and I think he showed it. He looked fast, he looked strong, his cardio held up.
A byproduct of training at high altitude for this fight in Truckee, California.
It paid off, and his work rate maintained. He was consistently the busier, much busier fighter of the two, whilst being the fighter that's pushing the pace.
He didn't get tired. He didn't seem like he took any rounds off.
He didn't seem like a fighter that was in decline to me. That was not a flat performance. The only reason Jermell Charlo heard the final bell is because he spent the whole fight on his bike.
He called out Canelo Alvarez earlier this year. I believe that was in May. He wanted it, and he got it.
The only thing Canelo Alvarez didn't do was knock the guy out.
He sure dominated him, though.
To those who thought that Spence's performance against Mikey Garcia was any kind of a master class, that would have to make this a masterpiece.
Beautiful.